you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to LaFleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Happy Thursday night, everyone. My name is Matt Ohayon. Tony's off tonight. I'm taking his place. The next best guy taking his place. Canadiens, disappointing performance in Detroit. 4-2 loss on a Thursday night in an Atlantic Division matchup. And it's time for the McGuire Report.
The McGuire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
Vago Italian has been open for 23 years. Longevity is the key word. Not many restaurants have been open for that long. Private dining rooms for any occasion, birthdays, engagements, corporate meetings, and there's plenty of free parking after 6. Open Monday to Saturday evenings and lunch Tuesday to Friday. Fresh quality ingredients, old world Italian classics with a new Italian twist. Come see Tommaso, the most popular man in Westmount. Pierre, first of all, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Matt. Nice to visit with you.
Nice to visit with you too. And don't worry, the last time we spoke, for the loyal listeners and loyal viewers, the background has been secured. It has been secured. It will not be falling tonight. Who did fall, though, were the Montreal Canadiens. My read on the game was basically, I mean, it wasn't hard to see. They came out completely flat in the first period. It felt like Detroit understood the gravity of the game and their situation, because this would have been a massive, massive loss for them to take. And the Canadiens, I mean, they fell behind, but that doesn't really mean much these days because they're the comeback kids. But tonight, it just wasn't their night.
No, it wasn't their night for sure. You got to give Detroit some credit, too. They get paid as well, just like the Canadiens get paid. The truth of the matter is the bigger players and the better players for the Detroit Red Wings really came through. Dylan Larkin had a real good game. I thought Raymond had a very good game. Moritz Seider was very, very good. Alex DeBrincat was outstanding in different parts of the game. You could see their power play was amazingly effective. I know they were 1 for 2, but really they were more than that, because that first power play goal wasn't a power play goal, but it basically was. Their penalty killing was very good. And, you know, Cam Talbot made some timely saves, especially the breakaway save when it was 4-2 in the third period against Cole Caulfield. If he doesn't stop that, I think we got a bit of a different game. But look, you're not going to have your A game every night. And you know it, Matt, the viewers know it. The truth is, the Canadiens have played really well tonight. They were a little short. They just were a little short.
Yeah, it felt to me in the second period, only after they scored their second goal, I said to myself, okay, maybe they have something here. They're starting to find their feet. They're starting to play on their toes. And then the end of the period comes. So that thwarted that. And again, that you said it best. You're not going to win every single game. The Canadiens have been unbelievable since December 17th. They're 12-4-1. That was December 17th is a marker, because that's the game that Patrick Laine had his hat trick against Buffalo. But to me, this game, I know you're not going to have your A game every night, but it felt like old habits started to creep in. You started to see, we haven't seen this over this stretch of games, but we saw it tonight. Canadiens giving up a massive amount of shots. And Montembeault, he played well near the end. He let in a couple goals that I thought he could have had, but he did rebound and he kept them in the game late, which was important. But again, just falling short. Their top player, you said it best. Again, their top players were better than the Canadiens' top players.
You know, it's interesting that you say that about the shots because you're spot on, Matt. And the truth of the matter is those were the most shots the Detroit Red Wings had on goal at any point this season. That's the highest shot total they've had the entire year. So there's a couple things to that. One, Canadiens didn't show up, as you said correctly, in the first period. At least they didn't show up with their A game. They probably showed up with a B- game. That wasn't good enough in that environment. And secondly, you could see Detroit controlled good flows of that game. Major portions of that game were controlled by Detroit. But I'll go back to it. Just think, if Cole Caulfield scores there, he doesn't, but if he does, that makes a difference. And then I was shocked Todd McClellan challenged the goalie interference, because at that point you got a 2-goal lead, and the Canes had those 2 opportunities to get back: the power play, which obviously they took a penalty, so that negated it, and then the Caulfield thing. So even though they were outplayed, just putting it out there, the Canes still might have got back in this game with a little bit of divine intervention.
For sure. I felt that if the Canadiens could find their footing in the second period, to me, Cam Talbot, while he did play well, again, he found his footing, but in the second period, I don't know, he looked a little shaky in his crease. He looked like he was uncomfortable battling the puck a little bit. This came after the Canadiens' first goal. Mm-hmm. And I wrote to my friends, because we're talking about the Habs every night. I said, I don't know, Talbot looks a little too jumpy in his crease. The Canadiens, if they could get some chances, they might have something. But Detroit, man, they were suffocating tonight.
Yeah, and timely goaltending, as we talked about too. The saves he had to make, he made. And so you move along. I liked what you said about Montembeault too, to be totally frank. That was not an A game for him. There were portions of the game where he was an A player. There were other portions that were a C+ player. And if the Canes are going to win with consistency, especially with the schedule that they have coming up with New Jersey, with Winnipeg, with Minnesota, after this game with Detroit, that they're going to have goaltending that was a little bit better than what we saw for the 60 minutes tonight.
Yeah, the Canadiens, they looked a little tired tonight. I don't know what it was. I don't know what time they got into Detroit or what their travel schedule was like, but they have a good goaltending tandem right now. And I think I questioned the other night when Montembeault was named the starter against Tampa. I questioned it, and he proved me wrong. He played an excellent game against Tampa Bay, and he earned the start tonight. But, he wasn't alone. He wasn't alone in culpable for that first period and how it went. There were a couple players that had some rough nights. Hey, how often have we said this? Lane Hutson had a tough night. He had a real tough night.
They went after him too. They challenged him pretty much physically. I mean, they've got some bigger people on the wings there. And you could see whether it was Dylan Larkin kind of bumping into him, whether it was Joe Veleno, who drew an interference penalty off him in the third period. There were a lot of guys going after him. I found that interesting. But again, that's going to happen. It's the end of the point streak now. He can move along, get set up for the next game on Saturday night against New Jersey.
Yeah, and it's a big game because, the wheels are not coming off in New Jersey, but they're started to slow down. But hey, you want to look, we could get so caught up in this Habs bubble. But if you look around the games in the NHL, they didn't really lose much ground, if at all, because Carolina beat Columbus, who is just white hot. Boston and Ottawa, someone had to win that game. Boston won 2-0. And then the Rangers inserted themselves into the conversation over the past few games, but really inserted themselves into the conversation with dominance tonight, with assertiveness, with a 6-1 win over Philly. So really, every team kind of in the same situation. They're trying to pull away, but they can't. They're losing important games. So it's very, very easy to get caught up in, it was a division game. Now Detroit's still alive and they're in the conversation, but this is what the East is going to be till the bitter end, right?
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's one of the great things about hockey. It's one of the great things about being a fan of the Montreal Canadiens, especially in a season like this. You get excited every night. It's not like, okay, that's a big game, and the next one, well, that's not such a big game. Every night's big for this team. We talked about New Jersey coming in on Saturday, but when you look at it, Winnipeg's coming in, then Minnesota's coming in. Whoever would have thought those two games really matter? They matter. They matter a ton. So I'm kind of excited for where this team is. I had a great opportunity today to talk to Jeff Gorton for a long time, and really their plan for the team is outstanding. You know, Matt, I'm really so encouraged for the fans and for the ownership and for the players and the organization and going forward. This is the best I felt about the Montreal Canadiens in a real long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard not to. And, you know, for the frustration maybe tonight that Canadiens fans are feeling, because, again, very easy to look at the micro, but let's look at the macro. It's a privilege to feel this frustration because the games matter. The intensity is turned up. The expectations have turned up a little bit because of the way they're playing. This comes with the territory. And I think this team is still up for it. It's one game. Yeah, they lost a couple games ago against Toronto, but then they responded really well. And it's always the response that matters a lot more than the initial adversity that you're facing. So these games, like you said, they matter a lot. All of them matter. And again, another positive, the month's not over yet. There's still 3 games to go in January. Yeah. But this was without a doubt, from December till now, the toughest part of the Canadian schedule.
No question.
And they made it through, and with flying colors, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. I couldn't agree more. The good news is Laval's in first place in the American League in their division. The Canadiens are battling for a playoff spot. Their draft picks are playing extremely well all around the world. You know, over the last 15 years, and you know, everybody's going to talk about, well, we went to the Stanley Cup final. Check it, okay? That put an asterisk. That's not the Stanley Cup final. This organization's really set up to do well for a very long, not for like 2 or 3 years, but to do well for a very long time.
Well, and that came up in your conversation with Jeff Gorton on the eye test, the Sick Podcast, the eye test. When you're done listening to this, go check that out if you already haven't, because it was a phenomenal episode. And just like you said, lots of insight from Jeff Gorton, just really a thoughtful man. And he said, there was a clip that we posted on Twitter, and he said, you know, to get, you know, maybe Canadiens fans get a little excited. You know, he said this team deserves a little something. They're showing management on the ice that they deserve a little nugget, a little cookie, that, you know, they're going to go out and look for a piece to add to this team. Who that piece is, I don't know. They have their eyes on people, and they had, like he said in the clip, they had their scouting meeting. But they have proven, this team, that they deserve a little something to make a little extra push, but not at the expense of the future of this team.
Yeah, they're not trading any of their young kids. They won't. They're not. And I knew that going in. I've been trying to share that with a lot of people around hockey, you know, friends of mine that work for other teams. Will they trade this guy? I said, no, they're not trading any of their kids. Their kids are what's going to make them great down the road. And that's why I put such a big part of the process on what's going on with Pascal Vincent and what's going on down in Laval. They've done that staff's done a very good job with those players. And it's really exciting. And Jeff even alluded to that when we were talking to him today. So no, I do think they're going to add somebody at the deadline, especially if they stay as relevant as they are right now. Who that'll be, I don't know. What they'll have to pay, nobody knows. The market really hasn't been established yet. You know, some people will say, well, look what the Rangers did. They traded Capo Caco for Will Borgen. So that's kind of the market. No, that was just 2 teams really urgent to make a deal. Seattle was struggling. Rangers were struggling. Seattle wanted to move a D. Rangers wanted to move Capo Caco for whatever reason. And both of them are actually doing really well. You know, Will Borgen's playing great for the Rangers, and Capo's playing really, really well for Seattle. So it's a good deal for both teams.
That's it. So, and that's the thing, is that there hasn't really been that first domino to fall in, quote unquote, the rental market. We know Pittsburgh is rumored and, you know, speculation that they're going to be having a fire sale. So maybe the piece could come from there. You know, if you look up and down that roster, I don't expect the Canadiens to go after Sidney Crosby. But could a Ricard Raquel be of you know, of interest? Probably. This team you could always use more scoring wingers. So
yeah, I think, you know, I think if you were to watch them do anything, it might be at the center ice position. It's not because Doc's playing poorly, because I think he's playing well. It's not because anybody's playing poorly. I just think maybe they want an upgrade at maybe one of the center ice positions, and obviously not Suzuki's position. So we'll see if they can pull something off. But I do think they'll give. I like what you said. They'll give them a little cookie. I do. I think they're going to give the dressing room a little bit of a cookie. I do.
Well, they have to, right? I mean, it's the same thing, to a different degree of what it was Montembeault's first year. This was the first year of COVID hockey where the Canadians were traveling around outside of Canada, and Montembeault was playing, I think, with a broken wrist, and they played with 5D and 11 forwards in Florida, and he was a good soldier for them. Montembeault was. They gave him a contract. They do right by their players. And, that's a constant theme that Stu and I talk about every Friday night. This organization is setting a culture. They're establishing that you want to play here, not only because we're the Montreal Canadiens, because the Montreal Canadiens and the history and the this and the that and the environment, that can only get you so far. But being a first-class organization with a culture of winning and, doing right by their people is what's going to attract people to this market.
Smart. What you just said is really smart. I agree with that, especially in the Canadian marketplace where taxation is a big issue. And so, no, I think what you just presented is really, really smart. Look, I've known both Ken and Jeff for a long time. I've known Jeff Molson for over 35 years. So, yeah, no, I agree with what you just said. I think that's a big part of being a Montreal Canadian, just the way the franchise is set up now, the way the people that are running it are making decisions, and the way ownership is really acting. So I'm really encouraged. I'm really encouraged for the fans.
That's it. So again, just, for fans it's hard because, they went on this nice stretch of games and they're still in it. There's 12-4-1 since December the 17th. They're still in this stretch of games. It's not over just because they lost 2 of their last 6, I think. So it's far from over. But memories, people remember the first half of the season very, very fondly. Well, not very fondly, but they remember it very vividly, I should say. And those old habits can creep in again. So it feels like the fan base, it's still a little delicate. I don't know if the team is still as fragile. That's not how I would categorize them, in that one game could, just toss all the progress they've made out the window. I don't think that's the case.
I think nobody should be like jumping out of a window right now.
Yeah.
It's one game in 82. They've put themselves back into the discussion in a major way. They got a lot of help from the schedule maker tonight. The right teams lost for them, which is very important when you're in this kind of situation. If Anaheim could ever beat Pittsburgh tonight, that'd be great too. So, there's a lot of, if, Buffalo, I know, is at the bottom, but if Calgary could beat them, that'd be good too. So look, it's a weird kind of a night I think for the Canes in a good way. They didn't have their A game, but they really didn't lose any traction in the standings. That's something to pay attention to.
Yeah. So I think, just toss this one out the window. Like you said, the schedule makers did them a favor. And this is going to happen a lot towards the end of the season. The Canadians are going to gain traction and then they're going to lose. Then they're going to lose a game and Ottawa's going to win a game. But the big point is, if you take a look down the Canadian schedule, there are still significant games on this schedule. Every game's significant. But when we're talking about against the teams that are in this fight for the playoffs in the wild card, they have, I think, 3 games left against Ottawa. The big story after Tuesday night was that the Canadians were 1 point away from third in the Atlantic. That puts Tampa Bay, they're not so safe. They have 1 more game against Tampa Bay. They got 2 games against Florida. I think they have 2 games against Buffalo. These division games are going to be so massive. And they have 1 more against Boston. I shouldn't forget that one. These division games are going to be so massive. And, again, take the macro view off this one, because the Canadians, they still did some good things. I like what you said, that Kirby Dach has been playing well. And I thought, he was one of the very few bright spots, frankly, tonight for the Canadians.
He was no question he was. I thought Newhook was as well. He was jumping around pretty good. That whole line was actually really solid. I think they were obviously the best line for the Canadians. I didn't like the top line tonight. Outside of the Caulfield breakaway, there wasn't much going on. There was Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield. They'll be better. It's one of those things. And you don't get last change, so people load up on that line too, not just with forwards, but with defensemen as well. So that's something to pay attention to as we go into the road part of the schedule, down the road a little bit here, no pun intended. What I would say too is, again, Sam's been real good in goal. He was tremendous. I would say tonight, if I was grading him, probably give him a B-, C+. This first period wasn't good enough. And if they're going to win, they got to get 60 minutes of goaltending, and they didn't get that tonight.
Yeah, and Montembeault, it's give and take, and Dobesh, frankly, because Dobesh against the Rangers, he turned it on in overtime, but before that, he didn't bring his A game either. I know the record is very shiny, and he's the shiny new toy in town, but this team, it's not they can't really put the puck in the net, so they need to lean on the goaltender. It's not like that, but some nights you do need to lean on your goaltender, and this was one of those nights, and just that's the way it goes. I want to dive a little bit into your conversation with Jeff Gorton. Mm-hmm. So he was singing everyone's singing the praises. How could you not? You want to talk future of Ivan Demidov. He has just been unbelievable. It seems every single day there is some clip that goes viral on Twitter from the KHL account that he just pulls some unbelievable move and he makes an amazing no look pass. This guy is gonna be a bona fide superstar, I think.
Yeah, no, I think some of us were talking about that the day the Canadiens drafted him. He's got a chance to be really good. It takes time, though. Matvei Michkov was supposed to come over here and be Connor McDavid. That hadn't happened. He's been good, but he hadn't been Connor McDavid. People don't realize, this isn't a league for 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. This is a league for men, strong, physical, hard men, and most 18, 19, and 20-year-olds aren't there yet. And so there's going to be some learning for him. Just like tonight, you made a good point about Lane Hutson. Lane didn't have a good game tonight. That's going to happen. He's a kid. He's 20 years old. He's just a kid. So, yeah, I'm encouraged by him, obviously. I think Logan Mayu's another one really excited about. Owen Beck, another one really excited about. Michael Hayes at Michigan, really excited about. Sammy Harris at Denver, really excited about it. Josh Ottawa, excited. There's so many. So they've put themselves in a really good position, and it's something to focus in on. But, no, Jeff was really encouraged about Demidov, very, very encouraged about him, and he should be. He's a good player. He's a really good player.
So, and I'm sure he was singing the praises of all that supporting cast, you said, but the biggest note that probably is the biggest question mark hanging over Canadiens fans right now, more so than who are they going to add at the deadline or before the deadline, is what is going on with Jake Evans. And again, as a consummate professional, he gave a little nugget, but he also didn't give away too much.
Yeah, no, he was good. He was really good about it. Look, and I didn't want to push him on the issue. I've walked in his shoes before. Negotiating is really hard. You don't want to give too much, but you do want to be involved. And I like the fact that he said they were going to sit down with Jake's camp. They were going to sit down with Jake. They were going to explain the scenario that they see for it. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going exactly verbatim here. But the truth is that this is going to be done in a quiet manner. They're not going to be leaking information out and trying to keep everybody updated on a daily basis. That's the proper way to do these contracts. I remember when Tampa did Steven Stamkos' contract, and everybody, and I said, Stamkos is leaving. Nobody's talking about it. And I can tell you right up front, Matt, Steven Stamkos grabbed me in November of that season, and he said, I'm not going anywhere. Report it. I'm telling you, I'm staying here. And I said, are you sure? He says, I'm telling you, report it. So I did. And he never went anywhere. He stayed there, and Donnie Meehan and the people at Newport Sports did an amazing job with, everybody down in Tampa getting it done, starting with ownership. They never said a word. And, we did Brady Tkachuk's contract in Ottawa. with the same people that did Stamkos' contract with Tampa, the Newport Sports people. They didn't put anything in the press. We didn't put anything in the press, and we got the deal done. And the kid was in camp, for camp, like maybe a week late, but he was still there. And so I think that's the best way to do it. And I do think they'll find a way to get something done with Jake. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think so too. I like the idea of kind of like a Colton Sissons kind of deal, low salary, many years, gives him a lot of security for the type of player he is. I think everyone's happy with that.
That's what I've been saying. And I know it's gotten some heat, but if you're going to pay a guy less than market value, you're going to have to give him something else, or he's not going to take your deal. And in this case, there's going to be, if he goes to market, he's not staying here. I'm just telling you, you got to get that deal done before he goes to market. If not, he's gone. He's not. Yeah. I'm just telling you, he's going to leave.
No, it for sure, because this season, even the scoring has kind of settled now. I think regression back to the mean. You can't shoot 30% forever. But even then, he's such an effective player. When he's not scoring, he's important for the Canadiens. You see it on the penalty kill. You see it just when they roll out that line. Plays with so much speed. And I thought, Frank, I thought he could have drawn, maybe if the refs were feeling a little more generous with their whistles, that he could have drawn a couple other calls tonight, because he got held up at the line and he's skated through being held a little bit, but they kept the whistle in the pocket.
Yeah, there's one in the third period I could see he was a little ticked off in the neutral zone. That stuff's going to happen. It's okay. He's been a real bright spot though for the team. I think you would agree. He's been a real bright spot. Kirby's really I'm really happy for Kirby. Again, I'll never forget his draft. He was 3rd overall in Vancouver, and Chicago took him, and I remember talking to him, and then maybe 3 months later doing his first game in Chicago and seeing how excited he was, and being around Kane and Taves in those days, and Seabrook and Duncan Keith was pretty cool for him. It was really cool for him. So just to see where he is right now is exciting. You cannot win. Ask the Boston Bruins. You can't win unless you got center ice depth. And Boston lost a lot of it with Krejci, obviously, and Bergeron leaving and moving on and retiring. Montreal's starting to get that center ice step with Suzuki and Doc, and now Dvorak, obviously, is good at faceoffs, and Jake. And with Owen Beck coming along, and who knows what else they got coming. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. And with excitement like that, because they still got more picks, and they still are going to make signings, and they're still going to make trades, comes the tough decisions of not everyone can play. So
that's a good problem to have if you're the GM.
Exactly.
Trust me, you might make some people mad, but it's a good problem to have if you're the GM. Real good.
Well, that's it. I think you want to take it back to the Justin Barron for Alex Carrier trade. I remember a lot of people, when they made this trade, were saying, how could they give up? How could they give up on Justin Barron, young defenseman, for a guy with cap and term, and it's going to hurt the team? It's going to hurt their chances of building more. And now Carrier, while he was also one of those who had a pretty rough game tonight. But this is the first rough game I think he's had.
It's funny because that's a trade that solidified the back end for this team. It's gotten everybody structured the right way, and it's moved Caden from the right side to the left side. Caden's much better on the left side than he is on the right side.
For sure. Let's take some questions now, Sammy. Just pop any up that you have start over there. So Pierre, this one's from Crystal Cleaning. Pierre, what are you thinking about Monty? Is he off his game because of Dovesh?
I don't think so. I mean, I hope not, because that's not the kind of competitor you know him to be. I think most goalies like a little internal competition. It makes them better, as long as there's not a lot of friction in the dressing room and guys are pointing fingers at one another. And I don't think that'll be the case in this situation. Fatigue can be a little bit of a problem for Monty. This team's traveled a lot lately. He was playing a lot of hockey because obviously, Caden Primo wasn't playing particularly well. So I don't think that's an issue at all. We'll find out down the road, but the fact that Monty's being invited over to play in the Four Nations is pretty special. So it's not just me saying that. It's a lot of pretty smart hockey people that are saying he's a pretty good goalie.
There you go. Let's take up this one. So the big question, put this one up from LK, Sammy. The big question, trade Monty for who if Monty is not consistent?
No,
Yeah.
no, not right now. Look, Jacob Fowler's the goalie of the future for this team. Dobish is good. He's really good. And I'm excited for him too. I think it's great. I watched the kid play at Ohio State. He's a good goalie. Jacob Fowler's at another level. You'll see when he's just at a whole other level. So it's exciting. Again, they've got huge depth at that position as well. Now, Jacob's not going to just leave Boston College at the end of this year, come in and be Ken Dryden from 1971. That's not the way it's going to be. But I could see a scenario where within less than a calendar year, Jacob Fowler's playing for Montreal on a regular basis. I could see that.
So, it's funny because that was going to be my next question for you, which was, we see so often with goalies, you don't want to rush them because forwards generally the quickest to develop into becoming NHLers. Then it's defensemen, then it's goaltenders. Case in point, Samuel Montembeault. He only really found his footing at 26 years old, 25 years old. So that was obviously no two goaltenders are the same, but I was going to ask you about Jacob Fowler's timeline and how his game at Boston would now translate to the NHL, say, if they brought him in as a 22-year-old or a 23-year-old.
He'll need time to get more anchored, and part of it is because you can beat him up high. And I think part of that is just being a little over aggressive, so he's a little off the angle, and that's happening at not all the time. Trust me, he's the best goalie in U.S. college hockey. He's probably the best goalie outside the NHL. But that's just a little fine tuning. And, Eric Raymond's the goalie coach for Montreal. They're going to don't worry, that's going to get all adjusted and fixed. I'm not too worried about what's going on with Jacob Fowler. It's funny you're bringing up all this stuff about where's this guy going to be, where's this guy going to be. Here's what I can tell you. I remember going to scout a game and Marty Brodeur was playing in Utica, New York. Okay? He was signed by New Jersey and he was playing in the American Hockey League. So even the best players playing the American. Ken Dryden before 71 was playing in Halifax, I think. So, yeah, I mean, it just happens. It's the way it goes.
Well, that's it. Because, goaltending, it's a weird position, and the development timelines are just so different goaltender to goaltender. It's a fascinating position, and that's why you need to have the right people in place like Eric Raymond for the Canadiens. Let's go with this one because we talked about it just a little bit earlier. Are there any centermen available at the trade deadline, like a third line type?
Yeah, there are for sure. And I don't like using names, but one of the names you hear a lot is Yanni Gourde. His name is out there. I didn't put it out there. Somebody else put it out there. But it's out. I don't know whether he's being traded or not, but would he be a good fit? Yeah, the answer is he brings Stanley Cup street cred into the dressing room. He's a guy from Quebec, and he's a guy that cares about winning, and he's a good player. So are there guys like that? Yeah, there'll be more. There'll be more as we get closer to the deadline and teams start to see, hey, we're in it, we're not in it. Let's start to retool.
The one type of player I really want the Canadiens to acquire is they have their dog in the fight in every game on the back end in Caden Gooley. This guy is going to drag you by the collar of the jersey into the game, whether you like it or not. They have that in Brendan Gallagher, but I feel like they need someone else on offense like that. I don't know who that player is. It's easy to say they need a Tom Wilson type. Well, GMs are just shipping off their Tom Wilson types. He's the type of player, if you have him, you keep him. Yeah. But that's the type of player that I think the Canadiens could really benefit from. Someone to play in the top half of the lineup that is just gonna, they'll take a punch to the face by going into the crease and crashing into the goaltender, but they're also offensively gifted. That's the type of player that if Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon could get their hands on, I could see them making a move.
I agree with that. I could see it. You talked about Tommy Wilson. Wait till you get a load of Ryan Leonard when he plays for the Washington Capitals as a second line right winger behind Tommy Wilson. You wouldn't want to be a left defenseman playing against those guys in a playoff series, I'll tell you that.
Well, I'll tell you right now that the Capitals are first in the NHL right now, so they're only just going to get meaner and more annoying for a lot of opposing teams and fan bases. Let's pull this one up from David. Which current or former players are examples for Slaf of power forwards who had to learn how to be a power forward, meaning they added a physical edge they didn't always play with?
That's a really good question, actually. One guy who wasn't quote unquote a power forward, but he played bigger than his size was Chris Kunitz. He really, I just remember him breaking into the league, and he was in Anaheim, and all of a sudden he gets traded to Pittsburgh, and everybody's going, where did this guy come from? Like, he's playing with Sydney, played in the 2014 Olympics. I mean, he was one guy that I think learned how to play bigger for his size. And it's somebody that I think you can pay attention to. But Slaf is a huge guy. He needs to move his feet. And when he's moving his feet, like he was the other night against Tampa, he is amazingly difficult to play against. Tonight, there were parts of the game he was engaged, and other parts he was not. He was not.
So,
another big guy that I'll tell you is playing big. Sorry, I'm just thinking of it now. Current is Quinton Byfield. Watch Quinton Byfield his first 2 years in the league and look at him now. I mean, Quinton Byfield's playing a big guy's game in LA. Big guy's game.
And it's a very good comparable because he was a second overall pick, Slaf's first overall pick. So it's the same type of pedigree there. Yep. I have a question of my own for you, but first we got to take care of some business. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're also brought to you by Playground. Playground is giving away over $100,000 in cash prizes this January at their cash game poker tables every Monday through Thursday. Go and play anytime from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or enjoy late night games from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. for a chance to win. Each period will have 12 winners for a total of 24 winners per promo day. Get in the action at Playground. We're also brought to you by Bittt Tibi beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer perfect for those chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. We got 2 more here. Hang with Fruiterie Dard, a family-run business and mainstay in the LaSalle community. Since 1995, is proud to continue offering the same fresh foods, flavors that they have for the past 30 years, from fresh fruits and produce delivered daily to an ever-expanding assortment of deli meats, cheeses, and sandwiches. You'll find personalized service and friendly faces that make you feel like your family. And finally, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. So I want to pick up on Slaf because my question about him, it's more of a question about Martin St. Louis and his player deployment. At what point? Because I know this team is patient. If there's one thing that they are, it's patient. The management is patient, coaching's patient, and players are patient on the ice. This was a game where I found, like you said, Slafkovsky needed to move his feet more. He looked a little behind the play at times. And then the late game power play came. And I found this interesting because, he was just thrown onto that first power play unit out there with his unit. And we know Martin St. Louis likes to keep his lines together for long periods of time. But at what point do you say, okay, it's 4-2. If we score one more goal, we have something here. We can really make this ending interesting. And Kirby Dach has been probably our best forward of the night. At what point do you say, hey, Uri, why don't you take a seat on the bench? You'll get out there with the second unit, and we're gonna throw Kirby out there for the first unit.
I didn't think he wanted to overreact tonight, the coach. I think he knew that they just didn't have it tonight, and why make guys feel bad about themselves? There are times in a season, if that's a 6-1 game and your guys don't show up for the whole game, that's different. There was some pushback, I thought, in the second and the third period. I didn't think this was as bad as what a lot of the pundits are saying. I think a lot of people were expecting to go in there and steamroll Detroit. It's not going to happen. Detroit's got a new coach. They're scoring it better than a goal a game more than what they were doing for the last coach. They clearly trust Todd McClellan. There's no question about it. They trust the guy. And their better players tonight brought their A game, and they knew they had to overcome the loss of Patrick Kane tonight. So those guys were ready to jump. Montreal just was not ready to jump out of the gate. So I don't think as a coach you want to overreact in that situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a crazy balancing act you got to play, right? Because you even see it game to game. Because again, the Canadiens are a patient organization. They last year stuck with Slafkovsky on that first unit, and Martin St. Louis, even though he wasn't putting up points in the first half of the season, he went to bat for him in the media. He really stuck his neck out for him, and it paid dividends. He was a dominant force in the second half. So patience
I'm
is
with you on everything you're saying. One of the most important things is people need to have a positive workplace environment, especially if they're a team that's trying to overachieve. These guys are trying to overachieve. If you got a bad workplace environment, it's no fun for the guys to come to work every day. It's not going to work out. And so the coach has figured that out because he's seen it both. When he was a player, he was in some bad situations. Trust me. I saw some of them. It wasn't so good for him all the time.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like I said off the top. With the way that they've been playing, and I said this last week, they are kind of exactly where they're supposed to be by management's, I guess, not really expectations,
I
but
think they're a little ahead. I think they're a little ahead of where management thought they'd be.
But they're in the mix, right? That's where they wanted them to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
they're a little more in the mix than
being in the mix. I think they're a little better than being in the mix. It's a day-to-day thing now. Let's just say you win Saturday night. Let's just say you do. You beat New Jersey. I mean, you're in a wild card position again. So this is people just have to check it. This is a team that I think next year is the big year. Anything they do this year is a bonus.
So this is a big one that a lot of people are talking about. And you know what? We're going to bring this question up. And I know you're going to have the same reaction that I'm having right now reading it, but we're going to do it anyways. This one's from Bob on YouTube. Pierre, explain to some why it's a bad idea to trade Mike Matheson. Thank you.
It's a bad idea because, one, he's a veteran player. Two, he can really skate. Three, he's been an amazing person around the team. Four, he wants to be in Montreal. That's a huge part of this thing. Five, the partnership that he has with Lane, both on and off the ice, is really good. It's significant. And you need to show people around the league that guys actually want to be there. Guys want to stay there. And when you do that and you get a player like Mike that does want to do that, it makes a difference. And it's not just because he's a good person. Mike's a really good player. So I don't know if people are in a rush to trade him, that's great, but I would not be in a rush to trade him.
No, me neither, because, it's there. I find with how this team is developing and how they're going, people, fans of the team, need to stop viewing players as a means to draft picks and just as assets to draft picks. And, it's, give me this draft pick for that, because I'll tell you, you could say it and I could say it. A third round pick or a fourth round pick or, whatever you would get for Mike Matheson, it's not going to change. It's not going to bring what Mike Matheson does now. Maybe it'll bring in, 4-5 years from now, maybe. but it's not going to bring what he does right now.
No.
And that 3rd or 4th round pick that they'll get by trading someone, it's not going to help them right now. And it's not going to help them for a while.
Those picks take a long time. You know, they're you might think, well, we got 5 third-round picks. They might never pan out, or they may pan out in 3 or 4 years. And you've already got a new coaching staff who doesn't even know who the player is. One of the worst things that ever happened, I can tell you right now, is Marcus Naslund. We drafted Marcus Naslund in Pittsburgh in 1991. In 1992, after we won our 2nd cup, I went to Hartford. Scotty Bowman and Barry Smith went to Detroit. Some other people moved on from the staff, and all of a sudden nobody knew who Marcus Naslund was. So they decide, well, you know what? He doesn't fit on our team, so we'll just trade him for Alex Stoyanov to Vancouver. They traded Marcus Naslund for Alex Stoyanov. It's one of the worst trades in the history of the NHL. And the only reason it happened is because nobody really knew about how he was drafted and why he was drafted. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing story. And so you got to be really careful. It's not like fantasy land. You just can't throw guys overboard. You got to be smart about how you do it.
But that's it. You know what? It's Marc Bergevin's famous line. We're not playing PlayStation here. You're dealing with,
he's right on that. He was right on that.
You're dealing with you're, first of all, as a GM, you're in charge of a billion-dollar company. Let's say the personnel of a billion-dollar company. You can't just come in and, not know what you're dealing with. These every action has a reaction, and every action has its consequences. And we have a caller. We have Neil on the line. What's going on, Neil? Do we have Neil? Neil?
Yeah, it takes a while. Hey, Neil.
Hey, guys, calling from Vancouver. Tough loss for the boys tonight, but I'm hoping it serves as a bit of a wake-up call for big game in East New Jersey this weekend.
Yeah.
Question for you guys. I just want to follow up on a caller who actually called in on last night's show, asking about the potential of Sidney Crosby being signed by Montreal at some point. You guys kind of half answered the question by saying that you didn't think Montreal would be a destination for him. But I think the second half of the question that I wanted to address was, if somehow, and obviously hypothetically speaking, if Crosby did become available and there was some interest in him coming to Montreal, do you think Ken Hughes should consider making a trade for Crosby? And if so, what would you guys be comfortable giving up for him?
Well, I'm not going to talk about what I'd be comfortable giving up for because the marketplace hasn't been established. I would say it'd be more like Sidney would be able to pick where he wants to go. I think that would be one of the real things, Neil, that Sid would probably, because of what he's done in Pittsburgh, I think he'd have it a lot like Raymond Bourque when he was in Boston. He called a shot and he wanted to go to Colorado. I'd be surprised if Sid came to Montreal, but I don't know that for certain.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say we've seen crazier things in Montreal because that would be, pretty wild because of the gravity of type of player that Sidney Crosby is. But if he had interest in coming to Montreal, Ken Hughes would do his due diligence for sure. He would look into that if Sidney Crosby came out.
Yeah, but I just don't. I think there'd be other teams that he'd want to go to before Montreal. And it's not a knock on Montreal. It's just because of the way Montreal's set up right now compared to where a team like Colorado's set up right now. It's a different experience.
All right, that was Neil. So if you want to give us a call us at 1-888. 585-SICK. That's 7425. If you want to give us a call and talk to Pierre and I. If we have Neil, you're still there? No, we don't have Neil. Anyways, so let's look back at let's go back to the questions because I'd like to take a look at this one. I'm going to phrase this question differently. This one comes from Ale Cool. Question for Pierre: Can the Canadiens do something to make the other team take a penalty too if they can't be disciplined? I don't really think that's the answer to fight fire with fire there. I think it's more just clean up your own game.
Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest things is discipline. You want to play discipline. You want to play fast too, so you do force the other team into uncomfortable positions. when the Canadiens are playing fast like they did against Tampa the other night, especially after the first period, they're a hard team to play against. And it's not just skating fast. It's moving the puck quickly. It's getting on the forecheck quicker. When they do that, they're really tough to play against. And so that's one of the things. When you're playing fast, you can draw the other team into taking penalties.
So I had this thought today. You tell me, Pierre, if you think this is an overreaction or not. Because this is, again, Detroit came into this game knowing the situation. This was a big game for them. If they lost this one, they're starting to be some distance between them and the rest of the teams that are in the wild card positioning, and it would make it pretty tough for them to have to rely on other teams to be losing so much. But I had this thought because the Canadiens, obviously, they were up 3-0 on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Cole Caulfield had a chance to put that game to bed. Christopher Dvorak had a chance to put that game to bed. And then we know what happened. And then tonight, just again, with the gravity of this game and how Detroit came in with desperation. And I don't want to say the Canadiens could have ended their season because you can't do that with 35 games left. But again, they could have created some distance. Is one thing that the Canadiens are lacking is killer instinct, because I find they play with immense survival instinct because they're always coming back, and resiliency, but they hadn't learned how to kill a game right from when they have a big lead.
Yeah, one of the only ones I've seen them do that, actually. I saw them do it in Florida. I thought they killed the game in Florida pretty well when they were on that road trip. I thought they did a good job killing the game in Colorado, hanging in there, and then at the end putting a good job on them. But no, it's not something that happens all the time. Game in Utah, they definitely killed the game in Utah. They were good in that game, but especially after the first period. But no, look, you learn that stuff, Matt. You learn that stuff as you go along, and that's why, you see people. Where's Jonathan Toews going? When you get a guy like Jonathan Toews, it helps you learn internally how to do that. When we got Brian Trottier in Pittsburgh, it taught our guys how to do that. Joey Mullen taught our guys how to do that. So it matters, but it just takes time. You can't do it. You can't do it overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a thought I had, because I'm thinking, again, maybe that's a little micro thought, because I'm just looking at these two out of the last 4 games, and I'm thinking, man, they're really good at coming back in games, and it's exciting. It makes for great entertainment, but sometimes you want there's no gimmies in the NHL, but you want as much of a sweat-free win as you could get in the NHL. So we have Peter on the line, so excited to see what Peter has to ask us. Peter, thank you for joining the show. Peter, what do you got for us?
Hey guys, first-time caller.
Welcome.
Listening since pretty much the start of it. Pierre, you've been one of my favorite hockey minds for years now. I think I met you in Westmount in front of the second cup in Claremont years ago, and just pretty much said the same.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh no, it's always a pleasure to hear what you think about things. For me tonight, I mean, the boys didn't have their legs. That was kind of obvious to me from the get-go, and that's fine. Look, the stretch they've been on, sometimes a little bit of rest can throw things off in itself.
I agree.
The one thing I wanted to know, though, because it seemed to me we were kind of getting back into the old habits of those weak clears, not really doing things with those intentions. Like getting the puck out of the zone has been the biggest thing for us, disrupting these long cycles in our own zone and stuff. And I mean, I'm hoping that Marty is going to, maybe address that if there's a practice tomorrow or whatnot. But I'm just wondering what you guys might think is that just fatigue where that kind of weak clears and stuff are happening? That's really, just shooting ourselves in the foot when our legs are already tired?
Yeah, I think tonight is not a good example of the way the team's capable of playing. I thought the last 40 minutes of the game against Tampa was a better example of how they play, and I think everybody was really encouraged by that. The first 20 minutes against Toronto was probably a good example of that. The last 40, not such a good example of that. So they're trying to find consistency. Matt's been talking about that, Peter, and I agree with him. But I do think fatigue played a role in the game tonight. Fatigue for Montreal and urgency that Matt's been talking about for Detroit. Detroit knows they don't win this game tonight, they got a problem. They got a big problem. And they took care of business, and Montreal did not.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what Pierre said off the top, in that you're just not going to play your A game every single night. This is quite literally, yes, the games are very, very significant, and they will be till the end, but these are the dog days of winter. This is a Thursday night in Detroit. The building's half full. You know, you're already kind of tired. Wasn't a sellout, far from. And it's kind of hard to energize from within when you've been on such a tough stretch of games, and you've been, it's been so physically demanding on you, emotionally demanding on you, because you've been coming back so often. I think it was just that case that, as much as it's easy to say as an outsider, well, every game's important. You got to get up. You got to be fired up. The fans at home are fired up to watch. It just doesn't work that way. Everyone has a bad day at work, and this was a bad day at work.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
I did have one last thing to add there with you guys on that note. Have you guys noticed that the Habs tend to play up or down to their competition? I mean, I don't know if that's taking other teams lightly. I don't want to say that, because I don't think in this league with the parity you can take any team lightly, and they sure know that. But I have noticed kind of a trend where, the Chicago's, not to say, Detroit's right there with us, so I don't think they're a bad team or anything, but, we're definitely kind of raising our game when we're playing the Avalanches, the Tampa Bays like we've seen, and maybe taking, just like I said, playing to the level of our competition.
They're not the only team in the league that does that. It's not a bad point. The Chicago game, though, I will tell you this: that was on a long road trip, and they actually had over 40 shots in that game. Montreal. I thought Soderstrom was a big factor in that game for Chicago in goal. Did Montreal have a good start? No, they didn't. They took bad penalties. They got in trouble. But you're right. There's some instances where you could see, hey, you know what? They have played down to their competition. But I think it's better to be able to play up to your competition, what they can do, and sometimes you will play down. There's no question.
Yeah, you'll take that every day. All right, well, thanks, guys. I do
Peter.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter.
Keep on doing it. I love it. It's nice to have a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And to your point, Pierre, it's a lot more encouraging. So sometimes you might play down, but that's okay, because you have the ability to play up, and it's a real problem when you don't have the ability to play up to the competition, and that's when you get killed. So that is a true positive for the Canadiens in the way of looking at it, because I'm sure Peter's not the only one who's had that thought.
No, I can see how a fan could have that, especially at the start of the year. The first month and a half of the season, people are like, "Whoa, this team can't even beat bad teams." So I could see how people would have that opinion. I really could.
Pierre, it's just about that time. The hour absolutely flew by.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. It was a hard day's work, and I'm sure it's a hard day's work for you. It's always a hard day's work for you.
This is a delight. I'm so grateful to be working in the best hockey city in the world, and I had such a good time with you, Matt. I'm into the car heading down to Massachusetts Amherst to watch to broadcast a game on TV tomorrow night, the UMass Amherst versus Alaska Fairbanks tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to that, but it's never bad when you're around hockey. It's never bad.
That's it. It's easy to get up in the morning when you're going to be watching hockey all day.
That's right.
Pierre, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. Drive safe and enjoy the hockey.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I really appreciate it. I had a ton of fun working with you. Thank you.
That was Pierre McGuire. I'm Matt Ohayon. Hey, I'll be back tomorrow night in my usual spot. We'll catch you then.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.